This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
It's Oh Behave with Arden Moore, the show that teaches you how to have harmony in the household with your pets. Join Arden as she travels coast to coast to help millions better understand why cats and dogs do what they do. Get the latest scoop on famous faces, their perfectly pampered pets, and who's walking who in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails. Garner great pet tips and have a doggone fur-flying fun time. So get ready for the pause and applause as we unleash your Oh Behave host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome to the Oh Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. Hey listeners, 2018 is the year of the dog. Woof! Time for a canine celebration. So it's fitting that we have a doggone bona fide canine and history expert on our show today. And she has got some mighty strong typing fingers too, because this New York Times bestselling author has written, ready for it, more than 100 books for kids. And today she's here to unleash her latest must-get book. It's called Dog Days of History. Please give pause and applause to the prolific and talented Sarah Albee. Hey, welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you. That was an impressive string of puns there. I wish I'd known you when I was writing this book.
Oh, I am the pun master. Sorry. Buckle up, Sarah.
I enjoyed it immensely.
You know, I really did enjoy, here we go, pawing through the pages of your book, because each page, it showcases why we two-leggers, we're just fortunate to share the planet with dogs. And Sarah Albee is going to be our canine guide right after we take this quick commercial break. So you all know the drill. Sit and stay. We'll be right back.
Time for a pause. 4 furry ones, actually. Sit and stay. Oh Behave will be right back.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. cattreetray.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com. Oh Behave is back with more tail-wagging ways to achieve harmony in the household with your pets. Now, back to your fetching host, America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore.
Welcome back to the Oh Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. Move over, Alex Trebek. I mean, really, when it comes to canine trivia, our special guest, Sarah Albee, reigns as top dog. She has authored, yep, I said it, 100 books for kids, and she's here to chat about her latest book. It's called Dog Days of History, the incredible story of our best friends. You know, we got to dive right in, okay, Sarah?
I'd love to. I love talking dogs.
And is Rosie kind of your dog right now, kind of being right next to you, watching or listening, or is she somehow got sonar hearing from afar to make sure she gets mentioned by you?
Well, Rosie has this charming way of ringing a bell that is attached to the doorknob when she wants to go outside. She's very smart. But sometimes she sort of baps it like a boxer just when she's bored and I'm not paying enough attention to her. So luckily the bell is downstairs and I'm upstairs. But yeah, I think she's sitting next to her bell right now.
I'm just saying this is another classic case. I'm an animal behaviorist of who trained who, right?
You got it. Absolutely.
That's Rosie 1. Sorry, 0. Sarah 0. But, you've written a lot of books. I'm looking on your site. And folks, after our show, please dash over to her website. It's Sarah Albee Books, and it's SARAHALBEE books.com. 2 really popped into my face and radar. One is called Bugged, How Insects Changed History, and my other personal favorite, Poop Happened.
Well, I'm especially proud of the subtitle of that one, which is A History of the World from the Bottom Up. But, what I like to do with my longer history books for kids who are slightly older, 8 and up, yes. I like to trace history chronologically from ancient times to present day, and I like to trace one thing through history that hopefully is appealing to kids. In this case, it's dogs, and in the other cases, it was insects, how insects have changed history, and then before that, it was the history of sanitation. But I actually have one that just came out in September. It's called Poison, and that's how people have poisoned each other through the ages. My goal is to get kids to love history and see how fun and cool it can be, but also to kind of make connections chronologically. When I was growing up, when I was in school, we would study ancient Rome and ancient Greece or whatever, ancient Egypt, and I had really not much of a sense of what came first and what came next. So I'm hoping kids who love dogs will come away with some idea of the events of history as well. So that's
I think you're going to do it. And the third accomplishment is you're getting them to read. Oh my dog, right? That's pretty good. So from what I understand, folks, I've got the book right in my hands, and I've read it to my dogs, Cleo, Kona, and Bujo. They give it all 4 paws up, and then they had to go belly up because their paws are all up. So you got, in our household, unanimous 4-paw rating. I think that's pretty cool you got there, Sarah.
They probably got a belly rub.
They did, and a treat.
They're no dumb.
Yeah. So I love
training who, right?
That is right. There's really cool titles in this book, listeners. Some of them are like Barking Up the Family Tree, No Bone Unturned, Who Let the Dogs In, Who, and Ad Dogs, Glad Dogs, Sad Dogs, and Fad Dogs, which sounds like you got influence channeling your inner Dr. Seuss on that one.
Yeah, that was fun. I like puns too. That's why we're getting along so well.
That's right. So I don't want to share all the gems of the book, but I would like to show a little bit, and then I want the listeners to get to know a little bit about you too, Sarah. So one of the things I thought was interesting is on page 32, you have dug up the source for the word curtailed, and it goes back to medieval times. Yeah. Do you want to share that with our listener?
Sure. Well, back in medieval times, there was a sort of a sorry history of rulers and nobility who kind of took over a lot of peasants' land and towns and things so that they could go hunting. And so it was only the king's dogs and the, high nobility dogs that were allowed to sort of run slipshod all over the place. And people, sort of ordinary people's dogs, were allowed to have dogs, but they were supposed to be for herding or guard dogs and that sort of thing. And so the word cur comes from medieval law that required regular dogs to have their tails cropped.
Right.
And the word was curtailed. And so cur is short for, there's curtal and then cur. So that's kind of how that name came to pass.
I sure hope there weren't a lot of huskies at that time, because that would be a tough crop,
Yeah. There's not some great, there's some sort of sad history in here, and you can't avoid it, really. Some dogs, there have been vicious war dogs and the dogs of the conquistadors who did a lot of terrible things once they got to the New World. But I do add that it really isn't, dogs are so eminently trainable, and they're so willing and wishing to please their owners that it's really about the owners who have trained dogs to do terrible things. It's not that dogs are inherently terrible at all.
Well, also speaking, let's go chronologically. Let's go to the Renaissance period. And I was blown away by the image on page 41, and they're making food on a spit. You want to share what the poor dog had to do?
Oh, yeah. Well, backing up a bit, dogs as pets have been kind of a luxury reserved for the wealthy until the late 19th century or so. Before that, most dogs, like most people, had to work for a living. So there was this one job that certain dogs had called a turnspit dog. And these sort of low-to-the-ground, dirty little dogs would be put into what looks like a giant hamster wheel, and they would have to turn this wheel, which in turn was rigged to a pulley which turned the spit on the roasting meat. So turnspit dogs had to do that. But dogs have had to do that sort of thing, like they've had to pull carts, and they've had to they had like dog-powered sewing machines in the 19th century, and they
you're
had
kidding.
dog-powered butter churns. No, it's amazing what dogs have done. And some dogs are kind of bred to pull stuff. I mean, even these days, like Bernese Mountain Dogs like to pull. And like I know people who own them and love them and treat them beautifully, but they give them stuff to pull sometimes because that's what they like to do. So
well, I have Bujo's mostly Bernese Mountain Dog in our house, and she likes to pull things like the flying disc out of my hand, but
Yeah, so dogs did have to work for a living, and so the wealthy who had the luxury of having hunting dogs and little lap dogs, the small dogs, they have a fun history too. They were, forks weren't widely used until the mid-1600s. So before that, people ate with their fingers, and so dogs were used as table napkins often. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. And as foot warmers and hand warmers and bed warmers, and like the Puritans would go to those long hours and hours and hours long sermons, and they would bring their dogs to warm their feet.
Well, my other dog, Cleo, is only 12 pounds, so I guess I'm going to save on my utensils. Hey, Cleo, come over here. I need to eat.
There you go.
You also, you got into the modern times, and first I want to go back to Sir Isaac Newton, because I want you to tell the tale about Diamond, because this proves no matter what, dogs get forgiveness.
Yeah, that's a bad story for a writer especially, because the idea of destroying a manuscript for which there is no backup is a really bad story. It makes me wake up in the middle of the night in horror, in a cold sweat. But yeah, Newton's dog the story goes that Newton's dog, Diamond, sort of tipped over a lamp or a candle and set fire to his manuscript that he'd been working on forever and ever, and he had to write it all over again. But he was forgiven, the dog. So there you go. That story. Happy ending.
And then the other one, I know people know a lot of the presidents that have had dogs and cats and other, even pigs in the White House. But there were two that I was hoping you could share. One was about Teddy Roosevelt's dog, Pete, with a non-ami from France, and Khrushchev with JFK's daughter, Caroline.
Right. Okay. So Theodore Roosevelt had a lot of pets, and his daughter Alice was really famously eccentric and cool and fun. She had a pet snake that she loved to scare people with. Theodore Roosevelt's dog Pete was a bull terrier, and he was kind of a menace at the White House. He would chase people, and he chased the French ambassador up a tree, and even took a chunk out of his trousers. And he had a long time out, I think, for 2 years before he was allowed to come back. And then there was a dog. Well, we know that the Russians sent two dogs up into outer space successfully, Belka and Strelka. And one of them, I think it was Strelka, gave birth to a litter of puppies. And Khrushchev, the leader of the Soviet Union, gave one of those puppies to JFK's daughter, Caroline. And they named her Pushinka, which is Russian for Fluffy.
That's really cool. Hey, folks, we're speaking with a New York Times bestselling author, Sarah Albee, and her book is called Dog Days of History, The Incredible Story of Our Best Friends. It just came out. It's through National Geographic. We're going to learn more about Sarah as an author and a person, including little fun facts, right after we take this quick commercial break. So sit and stay. We'll be right back.
Time for a walk on the red carpet, of course. Oh Behave will be back in a flash, right after these messages.
It's DesignerPetSweaters.com. Hand-knitted designer sweaters for your precious pup or cool cat. Beautiful couture patterns for your pets, including custom-knitted formal wear, casual wear, yachting, and even sports-themed. Many designer pet sweaters include feathered tammy hats, top hats, and a lot of sparkle. Each sweater includes leg loops, front paw sleeves, and leash opening. Visit DesignerPetSweaters.com to order your four-legged fashions today. Large or small, we fit them all. DesignerPetSweaters.com.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Dean Koontz, and you're listening to Oh Behave with Arden Moore on Pet Life Radio.
We're back from the lot. Just checked the paper and we had a record showing at the box. The letterbox, that is. Now back to Oh Behave. Here's Arden.
Welcome back to the O Behave Show on Pet Life Radio. I'm your host, Arden Moore. All right, I'm going to say it. I'm having a doggone good time with you, Sarah. You are Possum. How's that? Am I going? Here you go. But really, you do a lot of research, and your market are kids up to 12 or 13 years old. So there's a special writing style I'm assuming you have mastered. And what is it that has appealed to you to target this age group?
You know, I love writing for this age group from 8 to 12 years old. They're old enough to kind of appreciate jokes and humor and sort of read more complex stories and things, but they smell a rat. They know if they're being talked down to or preached to. So there's something really honest and genuine about this age. I love, love, love writing for them. And in fact, I got my start at Sesame Street. My first job out of college was working at Sesame Street, where I worked for 9 years. And that's where I decided I wanted to write for kids. So I started with a preschool background, but as I've kind of gotten older and written more, it's really my sweet spot is grades like 3rd through 8. I just love writing for this age group.
What was your gig at? I know you were there for 9 years. What did you do at Sesame Street? You weren't in the Big Bird costume, were you?
I was not, but, you know, you start out low on the totem pole when you're fresh out of college. But by the time I left there, I did a lot of writing for their books. There's a very thriving publishing department there. And I realized I am more of a print person than a screenwriter type. I worked on the music. I worked on the international. It was a really, really wonderful place to work.
What about the people that donned the costumes like Big Bird? How were they?
They were fantastic. And the guy who played Big Bird, I mean, that's really a complex thing. I mean, he had to be in great shape, and it was a person inside the costume, and his right hand was raised up over his head, which manipulated the beak, and then the left hand manipulated one of Big Bird's wings. So if you notice, his other wing is kind of just sort of flopping there because there's no hand in it, but he would have to look through this little camera through the feathers of Big Bird's neck to be able to sort of see his way out. But he was amazing. He could ride a unicycle. He could do all kinds of stuff.
Can you imagine filling out your taxes? Occupation, Big Bird.
I know. And at one point, at least, he was probably one of the most famous characters in America. And, you know, to have no one recognize you on the street, it's actually kind of a great thing, I would think. Kind of the best of both worlds.
I would think so, too. I think I would like to be famous with a veneer that no one knows so I can go anywhere. And so, darn it, I wish I was tall like you. I could have been Big Bird, but, you know. And speaking of that, it's kind of weird. It says you grew up in the Midwest in Ohio, but, I mean, you were born there, but you grew up in Vermont. And just how short were you in 7th grade? Because your poor mom and dad had to buy a lot of clothes for you in 18 months.
I know. I grew 7 inches in 1 year. I can't remember exactly how tall I was in 7th grade, but I was one of the shortest girls in the class. And then I topped out at 5'10", and I took up basketball, as people do. A girl who's 5'10", they put a ball in your hands. And I loved it, and I ended up playing it for many years. I played in college. I played after college. I played a little semi-pro basketball. I met my future husband on the basketball court, so I'm a big basketball fan.
She shoots. She scores. A marriage. That's cool. Now, were you a center or a forward?
Well, when I played in high school, I was a forward. When I actually played when I played in Egypt, I was kind of strangely, I was a center because I was one, which is not my position, but it was kind of a version of it being a center. And then after that, when I was playing in New York City and in men's leagues, I sort of shot from the outside a lot.
So you're a point guard. I'm an ex-sports writer, so I spent 20 years as a reporter. So, so I was thinking, she's, just by the height and the age of time when you were playing. You also were on the track team, too. So what was your sport there? What'd you do?
I was a jumper. I was a high jump, hurdles, long jump kind of thing. So
nice. Oh, and folks, she also plays the violin and she loves opera. I mean, come on, you have such a boring existence, Sarah.
I do think I have the best job in the world because, as a nonfiction writer, you can sort of pursue any interest that you have and learn about it and write about it. It kind of is the greatest job.
Oh, we have a little bit of...
And I am interested in stuff.
Well, I've written only 35 books, so I'm only a third of the way from you. And I used to work at Prevention Magazine, and I do a lot of nonfiction as well, mostly dogs, cats, and then I do some ghostwriting for doctors. But I'm like you. Isn't it nice to learn new things and be able to share it?
It's absolutely the best. And I suspect that some of my books are shorter than a lot of your books, so I think
That's okay. No worries.
Pretty impressive that you've written that many.
Well, all right. And folks, this is really impressive. Sarah knows how to speak a little Italian, French, and Arabic. And so when you were playing basketball in Egypt and you didn't like a call, what would you say in Arabic to a ref?
Well, Arabic is a lovely, flowery language, so it's not like you had curse words. You had sort of really kind of poetic ways of expressing your displeasure. So There's one that means, may God darken your day, and there's one that's, may a truck run over you. And I mean, I didn't use those very often, let's just say. I might have muttered them under my breath.
That's
but
okay.
It is, I mean, it's like when I was working in an office there, and I would call Lila in, the accounts payable department, and you can't just ask the question that you have. You have to start with, oh, hello, Lila, may your day be full of cream. And she'll say, oh, hello, Sarah, may your day be full of light. And you say, may your day be full of honey. May your day be full of this. And then you say, okay, here's my question.
There you go.
I mean, it's lovely. It really is.
And I'm looking at the clock. Don't worry, I hear your folks in the background. We're going to wrap this up pretty soon, but a couple of more gems from your book. And the book is called Dog Days of History, The Incredible Story of Our Best Friends. It's from National Geographic and the talented Sarah Albee. Let's go with Dr. Freud, Sigmund Freud, and his chow. Is it pronounced Yofi? Yofi had Yofi had an inner clock dog. I mean, what was happening when
he or she? I can't even remember if it's a he or she, but the dog would yawn at 50-minute mark so that Freud didn't have to look at his clock and know that the time was up for the next patient. The dog was also very sensitive to the patient's mood, and if the patient was anxious, Yofi would move away, and if the patient needed some comfort, so it was one of those amazing service dogs before they were called service dogs, I think. Comforting
that's
dogs.
Great. So what's the takeaway message you want to give all our listeners, especially our young listeners? We have 750,000 all over the planet, and as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, we're doubly delighted for the second year in a row. Oprah Winfrey has picked our podcast, Oh Behave, as one of the top 3 pet podcasts. So you got a platform here, Sarah. What is something you want to tell your audience about Dog Days of History?
Oh, there's so many fun stories in there. I wish we had 20 minutes and I could tell you all of them. I'll tell you one cool fact from there.
Okay.
The gentlemen in the Renaissance, were the upper class nobility, would have a sword that as part of their outfit. After that went out of fashion, gentlemen started walking with walking sticks because walking sticks were not to help them walk, but they were really useful for thwacking away possibly rabid dogs that roamed the cities.
Oh.
So I just love that cool connection, like with fashion and medical history and dogs. It's just fun when you kind of can make that cool connection of a lot of different subject areas in one. That was just one thing. I have a bunch.
That's all right. You know what? You do your research and you do it well. And it's been a real pleasure to have you as a guest on our show, Sarah. And for all the folks, go to SarahAlbeeBooks.com. It's SarahAlbee books.com. We also at this time want to thank our producer, Mark Winter. He is the Wizard of Paws. Pet Life Radio is the #1 on the planet. And until next time, this is your flea-free host, Arden Moore, delivering just 2 words to all you 2, 3, and 4-leggers out there. Oh, behave.
Coast to coast and around the world, it's Oh Behave with Arden Moore. Find out why cats and dogs do the things they do and get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get great tail-wagging pet tips and have a fur-flying fun time. All Behave with America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore. Every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.